Hi everyone, and welcome to Safehouse Chats. This is the first episode of our podcast. I am your co-host, Aris, also known as Inspector Montoya Fox on Tumblr, which is probably how many of you know me.
And I am your other co-host, Barry, aka Snap, aka Extraneous Domino Mask, also on Tumblr.
The best account on Tumblr, actually.
Thank you. I'm glad someone finally noticed.
I've been noticing for 8 years.
Yeah. I've been on Tumblr since 2013, which is an increasingly, painful thing to say. But
if I didn't know you, I'd say it's concerning, actually.
Yeah.
But welcome to our podcast, which is based on, as you probably already guessed, Sly Cooper.
The only good video game.
Yes. The most amazing video game about a raccoon.
People, let me say this immediately in minute 1 of episode 1. People are always saying that Ocarina of Time or Mario 64 is the greatest video game ever made. But they only say that because the people who write those lists were 9 years old when those games came out. The actual best game ever made is Sly 2, the PlayStation 2, and the fact that I was 9 years old when that came out doesn't mean anything.
Listen, I'm right there with you.
All right.
And if it's any consolation, I wasn't 9. I think I was 3.
Wow.
So 9 and 3 years old, 3-year-olds.
Objective. That's like peer
together.
review, right? Yeah. All right. So we've solved the mystery of what the best game is.
So, yeah, as like a little introduction, first of all, thank you for tuning in. And we wanted to welcome you to the podcast, which we've decided to make because obviously we both love the series so much.
Genuinely, it is my favorite story, I think. Which, again, I a bit of an arguable bias there, but as much as I have, attached to other similar stories over the years, I've always come back to Sly Cooper specifically.
Because it is genuinely good.
Yeah. And I feel thankful that the thing from my childhood that I have clung to is genuinely good, and that as I continue to squeeze it, oh, that's actually quite a nice touch there, instead of, trying very hard to, you know how it is when you're doing your best to see the good in a story, but you've already mined as far as it can go. I find Sly Cooper has surprising amount of, depth to the flourishes that it has.
This is actually something you've posted on Tumblr, and I told you I remember this post almost verbatim. The fact that we are fortunate enough that we like actually something, and we are self-aware that we are biased towards liking Sly Cooper. It's 100% true. But at the same time, the fact that we are fortunate enough to like something which is actually good.
Yeah.
And not try to defend... I mean, not to throw shade within the first 5 minutes of the first episode of the podcast, but...
Are you gonna name any names?
No, I'm not gonna name any names. I'm not gonna name any names.
I'll wait until at least minute 10 to name names.
Yes. But yeah, I don't feel compelled to defend any negative aspects of the game because they are few.
Yes, but they are there because it is a piece of art made by humans, and I'm sure we'll get to it in some respect.
100%.
I'm definitely clear-eyed in that respect, that I'm as my little comment about Ocarina of Time indicates, I'm not of the mode of this is the best game ever, it's 100 out of 100, there is nothing that it did wrong, there is no way it could be improved, because that's just untrue of any piece of art ever made at any point in history. And, as well, I think a big part of enjoying something like a series of PlayStation 2 games made for children 20 years ago is remembering that there are a series of PlayStation 2 games made for children 20 years ago and being able to be like, well, that part's silly, but you have to see it for what it is. And I feel like we're both good on that regard, that like we treat it seriously and we like really cherish the quality that's there, but we're also not kidding ourselves that this is like better than Shakespeare, because that's a meaningless metric.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the reason we reached to the point where we'd make good co-hosts for our podcast is because we share so many similar views on the series, and we've been expressing them for the past 8 years, again, on Tumblr.
In unprompted essays.
Yes, write-ups, rants. We've been consistent in our views.
Yeah.
And we do share them, and obviously it means a lot to us for us to be making this podcast in the first place. I mean, I grew up playing it personally. I remember actually the day I got it.
Yeah.
Was my dad took me to the game store, the only video game store we had in town. And I can't remember what it was, but I was looking for something else and they didn't have it.
Right.
And they were like, what about this? And it was Sly. It was the first Sly. And we got it. And I just remember watching my dad play it. And then I think it was just instantaneous after. Like, I liked it so much. And I mean, I was still a child, literally, because I remember by the time the second game came out, I was like telling my dad to print out the released screenshots of screen grabs of the second game.
Oh,
and it
wow.
was like, yes, Bentley in Rajan's jungle. Or, yes, and he was coming back from work, from the printer he had at work with the printouts. And I was just like, geeking out at a very young age. But still, that's how I got into it. And it has like literally never left my life.
I love hearing people's stories, because it's come up once or twice over Tumblr, like, and there's similarities there for sure with my own experience. In that for me, I was at a friend's house and he was just showing me the games that he had, and he was like, yeah, and there's this one about a raccoon, and he put on Sly 2, and he just was running around this beautifully rendered stylistic pastiche of Paris as this cool raccoon guy with a power. Like, I distinctly remember seeing Sly paragliding through Paris.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this is the coolest game ever. And he was like, yeah, it's fine. Like, so that was foreshadowing for how things were going to work out for me in the coming years. And I had money from like a birthday or whatever, and I went and I bought a used copy at, again, the video game store, which is now super mega closed down. I have walked past it in my hometown. It merged. It was an Irish brand called Extravision, and it merged with HMV in a last-ditch attempt to not close down. And they got as far as changing the sign before they closed down. And you can walk past this hybrid Extravision HMV that is mega super dead to this day, because nothing even replaced it. Like, that's how hard it died.
What is this depressing aspect to this origin story?
I'm sorry. I'm telling you my truth. But I remember walking in and seeing Sly 2 on the shelf, and it cost a weird amount. Like, it was $32.57 for some reason. And I bought it and I took it home, and I remember being excited that Sly 3 was coming out. So that must have been 2004, because they were only a year apart. Yeah, like, it really did just kind of strike me immediately. And it has never left my brain since.
Evidently.
I'm doing a podcast about it now. Like, 15 years later. So, Yeah, Sly 2 turns 15 this September.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think how, I mean, obviously we had different experiences, but how basically this has been around for like the entirety of our existence.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take a step back, it is, as you said, it's like, it was like just a Sony game on the PS2 for kids about talking animals. But is there really an explanation behind any fixation?
No. I also have to correct myself. I did the math wrong there. It is not 15 years. It's 20. It is 20 years old. It's 2004, and now it's 2024. So, oh God.
I mean, the podcast is timely then.
Yeah, we'll call it on purpose anniversary thing.
Yes. So, yeah, that's pretty much the general gist of it. And
I suppose we should also mention that our long-term plan for the podcast, which is that we don't have too formal of a long-term plan. This is the intro episode. We're gonna take like a stroll through the trilogy. I think what we've agreed to is 1 episode on Sly 1 and then 2 episodes on the next 2.
Yeah.
But even that's like, we're treating this very much as like a low stakes hobby thing, that we're just having fun with it. So we're gonna have, probably by volume, if we have 1 episode on Sly 1, and then 2 episodes on Sly 2, and 2 episodes on Sly 3, and then probably about 14 episodes on Thieves in Time, just to make sure that, because I've got a lot of thoughts on Thieves in Time. You've got a lot of thoughts on Thieves in Time. There's a lot to really kind of dig in there. Spark Runner will get its own episode.
Yes, I was literally we were discussing this right before we pressed record, how is the episode I'm most looking forward to doing. Spark Runner? Seriously?
I delivered the sentence, Spark Runner will have its own episode, with a completely straight face, and then it caught up to me a second later, and I had to bite my thumb.
Spark Runner.
Please
look forward to the Spark Runner episode coming to YouTube soon.
Do we have to do the episodes on Sly 1 and 2 and 3? Can we just skip to Spark Runner? Leave a comment if you want us to skip straight to Spark Runner. There's a fucking call to action. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a comment about Spark Runner.
Oh my god, you've got it down.
Okay. It used to be the case, and I used to, from the ages of 10 to about 20-something, I used to be very sad that there wasn't more Sly Cooper. And since then, I've really flipped on that, and I think 3 games is a good amount of games for a game series. And a beginning, middle, end trilogy is good, because if you don't do that, you end up making a lot of weird choices. And I'm probably gonna go on this rant at some point. We definitely live in the age of IP. Like the age of, if you remember, literally today, live action Avatar: The Last Airbender has hit Netflix. We're getting Kung Fu Panda 4, which will feature the return of Tai Lung, a character I really liked in 2008, played by the same guy. The go-to example that most people will think of is Star Wars. That Star Wars was 3 perfectly good movies, and then it was 3 more not so good movies, and then they made another movie, and that was fine, and then they made a different other movie, and that was not as good, and then they made the worst one. And then, they've just meandered between pouring out as much as they can and realizing that maybe actually some of it should be good. And basically, having just the trilogy, I think, is too... just the trilogy and some certain other things which we might also get to. And I'm not even referring to Thieves in Time there. There is some interesting apocrypha for Sly Cooper.
Yes, it's like part of the legacy for sure.
Yeah.
Like even things that didn't happen that were meant to is like a very interesting retrospective. I mean, yeah, we'll get to it when we'll get to it, and it's a interesting retrospective because with the Mario movie last year, video games made finally a successful transition to film,
and
which
as well, The Last of Us on the small screen, hugely successful.
Yes, so it is going to be an interesting discussion when we actually get there. I mean, there's a lot to discuss for sure under the umbrella of Sly, including the comics, the stuff that never happened,
PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale,
Spark Runner,
PlayStation Heroes, which is a different thing from PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Those are two different games.
Sometimes I'm like doing like stuff around the house, like doing dishes or cleaning, and I remember, there was DLC to Sly at one point.
Yeah.
And I paused for a moment and just think about that. The fact that Sly had DLC, I mean, even if you don't consider Thieves in Time to be like Sly proper, it still had DLC, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get to that when we'll get to that, because if we start on Thieves in Time now, we are literally never going to end. And
legitimate call to action that I might just slip in.
Yeah.
If there is, like we said, we're going to do the games. If there is something that you want us to do outside of the games, that's a good comment to make, and we will take it on board. We'll see what you guys want to hear from us.
Yes, on like either an opinion or something, or a specific topic for an episode. Yeah. I mean, the platform that I mainly, and I know it's the same for you, that we mainly use to interact with in terms of Sly is Tumblr. So that is probably where we are going to be promoting it the most. So if you have come over from Tumblr, feel free to just let us know what you want to hear from us, as Snap said.
Yeah. With that, will we get into the questions?
Yes. Okay, so
we've explained the questions.
So for an intro episode, we thought we would ask each other questions so that anyone listening could get to know us better. And we kind of agreed on the fact that I would cover more basic questions such as favorites and, like the classic traditional stuff, and Snap would ask the tougher questions.
Just slightly more in depth. I think there's still softballs, but we'll see.
Yeah, but not as basic as mine.
Sure.
Okay, so let me go first, and it is literally, I mean, we've answered this, but which is your favorite game and why?
It is Sly 2, because video games are interesting in that normally in other mediums, especially like movies or whatever, sequels often feel worse. Sequels of video games are almost necessary if you want the franchise to be good, because the first to make a video game is extremely difficult. When you make a sequel, you've at least figured out, like, you've made assets you can reuse, you've figured out the gameplay, you can build on it in a way that isn't as evident in other mediums. So, for starters, like, I like Sly 1 a lot, but I feel like there is a jump between Sly 1 and Sly 2, where they've figured out stuff, the art style looks a little bit more crisp, all that kind of stuff. And I just like the plot of Sly 2 the most. Comes down to personal preference, I suppose, but I like stories where characters are kind of like navigating each other to an extent. We'll get into my favorite character, I'm sure, but which is
how
tied
did you
up
know?
in that. Just a guess. But Sly 2, even though there are some little quibbles with it, like it's the only game that you cannot replay missions whenever you feel like it, that kind of stuff.
I know. I know.
That's got to be my pick. And yourself. Do I ask your question back at you as well? Can I?
Absolutely, you can. I was just going to ask you a follow-up. Why not Sly 3?
It's hard to put a pin on why exactly Sly 2 but not Sly 3, because I like Sly 3 like almost as much. Like it's a close run thing. So I think it just comes down to the plot is more to my taste in Sly 2, that I like things that kind of that stories that build on themselves and kind of wrap around to an ending. Whereas Sly 3, and I do appreciate about this, I don't think this was a bad choice. Sly 3 is a bit more episodic, where like the levels don't kind of flow into one another as much.
Yeah.
It would have been nicer to see more of, say, you get a new person in the Cooper gang, and then they factor into gang stuff from there on. Like, they do that, and I perfectly understand the reason they do it to the extent they do it, but you could have pushed it a little more, maybe. Like, had more playable Panda King levels or whatever.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I think in terms of gameplay, Sly 3 is better, but I'm mostly a story guy. I mostly would put story above gameplay.
That is actually what I have written down.
Okay.
For me, and I've tried to wrap my head around it like for many years, but I feel like at the end of the day what it boils down to is just, I don't know if you'd call it bias, but like the preference of Sly 2 over Sly 3 is very arbitrary in just, memories connected to it.
Yeah. Like, again, for me it was my first, so that's gonna give it an unfair advantage.
See, that's the thing with me and Sly 1.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for it, but even so, I can't just... It's not Sly 2.
Yeah.
Even though I do have it is, like, my... Not my favorite, but, like, the one that I find myself revisiting the most, Sly 1.
Yeah.
But, I mean, overall, it is Sly 2. It is arguably the best game in the series.
And ever made, also, of course.
No bias intended.
Yeah.
But also, as a person who puts narrative over gameplay, not just for Sly, just like in general as well. For me, Sly 2 delivers the best story out of the three, and that's why it takes the number one spot. Plus, it's not, that's not to say it has crap gameplay. It has so many fun missions.
Yeah.
Yes, it could have replayable missions. Yes, it could have done other things differently. Some of the levels, like, I played it right before Christmas or right after Christmas, and honestly, I've noticed a lot of things that I would have done differently, but even so, you can't say it's not the best. Like, Sly 3 for the fun and Sly 1 for the nostalgia, but Sly 2 takes number one spot.
I would agree with all of that.
Okay.
Now, here is a question I hope you don't find too difficult. What makes this cast of characters stand out to you? Like, in comparison to, say, similar games or similar stories. Why these characters?
Okay, maybe actually that is a difficult question.
Do you want me to go first? Because I thought it would be unfair for me to have these kind of hard-hitting questions and not figure out my own answers.
Yeah, sure, go first.
My short answer to this is, and this sounds like such a complete kind of almost cop-out subjective answer, but it is the truth. I find these games funny in a way that I mostly don't find games funny. Like, I will play a funny game, and it'll be throwing jokes at me, and I'll be like, like, that was funny, I guess. But Sly, the writing of Sly, it isn't even that it makes me laugh consistently or anything. It's that it's my sense of humor. It's got that kind of, I've heard it described as like patter, as the kind of banter it is. It's kind of like a constant low-level amount of humor, and it feels real. Like, it is cartoony, for sure, but the conversations had by the characters do feel like plausible conversations between slightly ridiculous people, in a way that sometimes writing, especially video game writing, can feel very artificial. So,
yeah.
I feel like, I believe the
I
dialogue
get what you're saying.
is done by Nate Fox, and he has a knack for it. Like, he really can, and obviously it comes down to the voice actors as well. They're all great performances. Yeah. But that would be, off the top of my head, I think that's what makes them stand out to me, at least.
I'm thinking about wanting to be buried in your mom's marinara sauce.
Wanting to be buried in pasta sauce, and it's just like, oh, that's strange. Like,
you're right. It is like 0% artificial. Like, you're definitely right. I think riffing off of your answer, what I would have to say though is the fact that you also mentioned it is cartoony.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always like had a love for cartoons my entire life. Like, I know you already know, but like one of the other stuff that is like for me eternal is like Scooby-Doo.
Right.
I love Scooby-Doo. And I grew up watching like cartoons nonstop, like Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, Scooby-Doo. Like, I feel like, and this, my answer might also be a cop-out, but I think what makes it stand out is the fact that they're animals.
Yeah.
And not only animals, it's the juxtaposition of having it be animals who, some of them don't even wear pants.
Mm-hmm. Famously.
Just famously. And putting them in a world which, yes, we've said the games are for kids, but also there's also an adult side. Like,
and it's such a good mix. I think, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that's completely vital to why it works as well as it does. It's very easy to go like South Park, Happy Tree Friends, like, here's a talking raccoon. What if he got his hands chopped off with a chainsaw and then he died? Like, that's not the level we're dealing with here. But we're also not dealing with like Bluey kind of, all they do is learn about the power of friendship. It's a mix of those two, and it works really well, I think.
And the line between reading it as an adult versus reading it as a child is very like tongue-in-cheek. Like, oh my god, Rajan is producing spice in his secret temple in the jungle. What could the spice be?
Yeah.
Sweetheart. Like, let's get it together. We all know what the spice is.
It really reads like a fun, colorful cartoon world that does have drug dealers in it. You just don't see the drug dealers because they happen to be off screen. But you know Carmelita Fox has dealt with like drug smuggling cases and similar like non-cartoon animal level stuff.
So yeah, I feel like that is what makes it stand out. The fact that you have the contrast between and the balance. Yeah. The contrast, but also the balance between having it be talking animals not wearing pants in literally real world setting.
Yeah.
Like, they treat what we would find absurd, like they have the same reaction. Yeah. Hopping vampires? Really?
Yeah.
So my next question is, and I don't want you to be too surprised, is who is your favorite character?
Neela. I like all of the main cast. I love Sly. I love Carmelita. I really like Bentley and Murray and Penelope, so that's all great. Clockwork is an amazing villain. Dr. M is a great villain. But first off, this is like the answer I would have given as a 5-year-old, and it hasn't changed. I like cats, and my favorite color is purple. So, out the gate,
there we go.
Very strong. But what I also like is a setting where superpowers are real, where, like, you can be a genius inventor who, like, puts a crossbow into his own wheelchair. Like, there's all this comic book shit going on. But there is a character who has a very mundane skill set and yet manages to thrive anyway. Like, Neela's a villainous version of that. But literally, look at what Neela is able to do. She is able to lie, and she is able to run pretty good. And she gets so far on those two talents that it is almost inspirational. So, as mentioned, like, Sly 2 is my favorite plotline, and that plot would not function without Neela. Like, Neela is the hinge that it all revolves around. And, you know, I have Carmelita and Sly on my keys. Someone made really good keychains of them. I'm always happy to rep Carmelita and Sly. But in a conversation with other Sly fans who know all of the cast, I always reach for Neela.
Okay, but, and this is a bit of cheating because it's not your turn yet, but my next question is, who is your favorite villain?
Okay.
So, what I had in mind was, like, when I said favorite character, I meant favorite hero. But not really. Like, it was open.
Okay. Hero
but
slash
I was kind of hoping... I mean, I knew that you were going to say Neela.
Yeah.
Like, I knew. But...
It's transparent.
It kinda. But I also included favorite villain just to give the chance to, like...
Someone else?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. In that case, let me reiterate, I've always loved Sly as a protagonist. Normally, I am a villain guy. Like, I care more about the villain, and I care more about, like, the funny side characters than I do about, my name is Hero Bravery, and I've got a sword, and I'm going to save the day. And again, certain other video game franchises have that bad. I think Sly is a great protagonist. I love spending time with Sly's point of view. And the other thing that I feel is worth saying is that when I was a child, I was like, Carmelita's fine, I guess. She sure is there. And now as an adult, I'm like, I am very firm on this series would be no good without Carmelita. Every game would be a substantially worse game if they decided, and with this one, Carmelita just won't be in it. Like, you need to have Carmelita Fox in your Sly Cooper story if it's going to be good. I am firm on that point.
1,000,000,000%. I mean, obviously, to answer my own question, my favorite character is Carmelita.
Yeah, as evidenced from your blog's branding.
Well, she's the glue.
Yeah.
That holds the entire series together, in my opinion. She's the first scene, she's the final scene, she's the one who destroys the hate ship.
Yep.
She's the foil to the gang's plans. She provides the best dialogue, in my opinion.
She has that inherent tension of, am I going to follow the law or am I going to do what's morally correct, is always, no matter what story you're writing, that's always a great kind of tension to draw on. What I have said in regards to Carmelita's necessity is, if this was just a montage of a cool crime guy fighting other cool crime guys, that would be fun, but like, it would feel kind of disconnected as well. The existence of Carmelita, the fact that she represents Interpol, which represents, like, a policing structure which represents civilization, which represents, like, there are normal people in this absurd universe. And without that kind of level of groundedness of, like, it's great in the comics as well. I wish it came up a bit more in the games. She debates with Sly, and she's like, when you steal something, like, yeah, you have your weird little moral system going.
Moral compass, yeah.
You're stealing from bad guys. But that's not how it works for normal people. Like, that... Carmelita is, to be clear, an absurd cartoon character herself. But thematically, she represents the normal life. And that comes up really beautifully at the end of Sly 2, where they're comparing notes. Carmelita does have a normal, like, off-the-clock life, where she goes to museums and she listens to Neil Diamond. And Sly kind of doesn't.
She does listen to Neil Diamond. No, definitely. Like, she brings rationality.
Yeah.
She brings relatability.
Mm-hmm.
And although sometimes she can be very black and white, she is the character which is more often used via Sucker Punch to segue into the theme of morality.
Yeah.
And, like, even though her perspective can be characterized as very black and white, it is through her character that the theme of the gray zone is explored in all three games.
Yeah.
Especially the second. But yeah, she's my favorite character, honestly.
And good pick.
Thank you. And as for villain, I had to go with the girlies. Ms. Ruby, Contessa, and Neela.
Yeah. Ms. Ruby is so underrated, I think. Like,
I know. And people hate the boss fight.
The boss fight was broken. That's not her fault.
No, it's not. But also, her origin story was bullying. Like, who can't relate with that?
Yeah. She seems...
What a legend.
We'll get into this in the next episode, but she seems to have her shit together the most of all five, Fiendish Five.
And I also feel like... I was just going to quickly say, not only has she got her shit together, but also I feel like she's the person who does the least, like, offensive crime.
I have the opposite perspective, but in a good way.
What?
In that, will we save that for the next episode?
Yes. Okay.
Little. We would call that sizzle in the business.
Yeah, but basically, I chose the girls because I know we have some very, like, despicable characters, which, like, when you think about what they do, it makes you hate them, and that is a good sign in making a villain because you sympathize with the hero, especially, like, I'm thinking about Sao.
Oh, Sao is that's where my mind went as well.
I mean, honestly, that is a great villain, but at the same time, for me personally, what I find appealing in a villain is that very, I don't know how exactly you describe it, but it's like a quality that Bond villains have, which is like that quaint, coy nature.
I know what you mean.
And the dialogue between Carmelita and Contessa when she's held hostage is literally some of my favorite in the entire series.
Yeah. It's
like the girls, they just do it better.
What strikes me about that exchange is the Contessa is mostly like exactly what you're saying, like faux polite, very together. Yes. But there's one bit where Carmelita just says, "I'll get you," and the Contessa replies, "I'll get you, I'll get you." Like, just complete childish pettiness.
For me, it is literally like the best dialogue. That piece of dialogue, and then she calls her a cow, which by the rules of the universe you would think.
They call each other cows. They call each other rats. Like, that can't be PC. that can't be, like, acceptable if you really break it down. Surely. We can do a whole episode on dubious world-building implications, I think.
Yes, I would love to get down to the nitty-gritty of fairy Jesus, but...
Yeah.
Until then, what is your next question, Bestie Snap?
My next question was, did Sly Cooper have any impact on your own storytelling? Because I know you've been involved in a creative writing course. I
have
evidently put out, like, fanfics would be probably, again, we're kind of cognizant of our Tumblr audience, but I do write original stuff too. So,
and by the way, I'm happy you brought that up because we are going to link it below.
Oh, sure.
I mean, I haven't asked you, and obviously, if you don't want, we won't.
Oh, no. I'm just glad that you said that, because that's more of a vote of confidence than me going, and by the way, guys, also I write fanfiction.
Listen, check out Snap's writing in the description below. We'll also link our Tumblr profiles because we are talking a lot about them, and I'm also conscious of maybe some of you are not here from Tumblr.
Yeah.
Which is great because it means YouTube is doing its job. But
that would be a first.
If you're not, feel free to check the links below if you want. But that's a great question, actually, because when you mentioned what was the name of the writer behind the dialogue?
Nate Fox.
I genuinely feel like when I started writing, like early teens, maybe like age of 12, I was writing dialogue just as in the games.
Yeah.
Like I was emulating it very much.
I'm the exact same.
Like down to the T, actually.
To the point that I notice I tend to use hyphens a lot. Like I'll have a character say 2 short ideas, and they'll say the first idea, and then there'll be a hyphen, and then there'll be a second idea. I think I got that from Sly Cooper. I think I got that because Bentley will often be like, be sure to avoid the lasers, hyphen. If you hit the lasers, they will hurt you. Like, that's just the cadence of how they talk to each other. And I
love that.
Every author has the one piece of punctuation that they overuse. Mine is definitely the hyphen. And yeah, like, again, the specific patter, the banter between the characters, that, like, low level of, like, not every joke makes you burst out laughing, but there is a kind of consistent level of humor. I've definitely kind of taken from Sly Cooper myself.
Definitely. It's the dialogue is the aspect I find to be the most inspiring / has the biggest effect on my work.
Yeah.
Because also, let's consider that we played the games at an early age and it forms the way you perform. But at the same time, I feel like also in terms of themes or how they chose to display those themes or handle those themes through characters, because it is character driven, the narrative. You get excited when you reach Rajan's ball and it's basically this exhibition of like the villains.
Yeah. I'm glad you made that point, because I think that's the other very, very important thing. I describe myself as a character guy. Like, I don't like classic literature where, like, the prose is beautiful and the themes are important and you will experience these things through the most boring man alive. Like, I need character to be... I need effort to have gone into the characterization, and by the same token, whenever I write anything, I'm always thinking about what character is going to be the viewpoint character here. Like, how are they going to talk? Like, what can I fit in about them? And then we can get into plot, and then if there's time, we can get into themes. That's my hierarchy of needs there. And I think Sly Cooper is a well-written video game because they put so much effort into the characters, and they based so much of it in the characters on even a design level.
Yes. I fully agree, and also relate to that. I'm not very big on world building, although this game and the series in general does an excellent job with that as well.
Sure.
Apart from calling each other cows and rats, which we've pointed out on the first episode. But yeah, everything you said I can relate to, and maybe it's because of Sly.
Yeah, like I said, I think he's a really good protagonist.
So, okay, my next question is, what is your favorite and least favorite episode?
Ooh. I could benefit from having a list of the episodes in front of me for this one.
I can go first.
Okay.
If you need some time to consider it.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite episode has got to be a Starry-Eyed Encounter.
You've already been praising Rajan's Ball quite a bit in this introductory episode.
For me, it ticks all the boxes of... It's early on in the game, so it gives you, like, exposition. It has great missions. It has great setting. It has a very pretty setting that is not, like, intense or depressing. It's, like, the color palette is very majestic and regal and calming and soothing. It's all the pinks and the reds and the burgundies. The hub, I love how it's split into two. And you have that section beyond the bridge.
Yeah.
You have the story behind it being that Sly obviously dances with Carmelita.
Yeah. That's a highlight.
I mean, the heist takes place during the ball. If you follow me on Tumblr, you know we have got to stop mentioning Tumblr, honestly. But if you follow me on Tumblr, you know that my favorite niche character is the doorman of the palace.
Slim Cognito.
Shout out to the doorman of the palace.
Yeah, eyeballs.
And you, heartless person, reblogged and said, expose is just a pair of eyeballs. That was one of your most cruel moments, okay? And I will never forget it.
I have seen no evidence to the contrary that it is not just a pair of eyeballs projecting a voice somehow.
And you call yourself a character guy.
Yeah.
That is my favorite character. I take Carmelita back. It is the palace doorman.
Okay, that's fine. I'll put that down.
And my least favorite episode is... I kind of cheated and have two here because they are equally... I don't want to say bad, but they just don't do it for me.
Sure.
And one is Dead Men Tell No Tales. I love the concept, but it just falls kind of flat. And I feel like in execution they didn't succeed in any way. But I did love Sly and Pirate in Pirate Land, basically. But
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done so much more with that.
Yeah.
Or Anatomy for Disaster.
Ooh.
Because I feel like by that point they ran out of ideas. And I do not like how... The hub is, for me personally, uninspired.
Okay.
It is too symmetrical. You can't really roam around freely and do your usual shenanigans.
It's more bottlenecked, yeah.
Sure, there's the stuff that goes down at the very, very first mission.
Mm-hmm.
The gang is down on its luck. Clockwork comes back to life. Neela gives birth to Clockla. But, I mean, Arpeggio dies, which is such a interesting plot point. But... It doesn't do it for me. It's just like, let's make an entire episode on this story moment, and then it's just Sly Murray, Murray Bentley mission, Bentley Murray mission, Bentley Sly mission. It's like these are all the same.
I get what you mean.
None of them, like, not a single one of them is good.
You're right. The answers I'm going with are best, He Who Tames the Iron Horse, purely because I like trains. And I like the incorporation of the 3 trains. You're giving me such a look right now. You
cannot. I know you cannot see us right now, but I am going back and forth from the camera.
You're shocked.
I am gooped. I am gagged. I am gobsmacked. I am flabbergasted because she was one of the candidates for worst episode.
I don't know what to tell you. I really like trains. And I love it when there's a Sly level that has something like the first Contessa level has the terrifyingly high-speed tram. The second one has the boat. Like these kind of moving elements. And then having done that, it's actually the way it's laid out is a very nice kind of 1, 2, 3. They're like, here's 3 trains. And you can be like, you can get yourself in some trouble with some guards, and also Carmelita is there. And the train will come by, and you can just grab onto the train and disappear. Like, that's very fun, like, 10-year-old gameplay to do. I have fond memories of doing that specifically. And similar to your answer, I think I'm gonna go with Honor Among Thieves as least favorite. Not because of the plot. Plot stuff's grand. That's all grand, fine and good. But because there's one mission I like. There's 2 missions I like to replay from. There's 3 missions I like to replay from.
Is it the Dimitri Piranha boss fight?
Just to recap, that level is Koala, Guru, getting on the sharks, and that's hard and not particularly
so much fun, actually.
Dimitri diving. That one's real bad. I'm sorry. Dimitri's gameplay is just bad. Penelope, RC bumper cars. I like that one. That one's fun.
Yeah.
Airplane. No. I liked the airplane fine in Holland, but I don't like the specific level they do in Honor Among Thieves.
No.
Panda King doesn't get a mission, because that was hard. And then it picks up. Once you get through all of that, it picks up again.
I mean, does it?
Yeah.
The grapple cam?
I like that. Again, more for the themes than the gameplay. I really like that they have Murray and Bentley hash it out with Dr. M, and they, like, as you say, they go...
Absolutely.
They get the theme grounded in the characters. Like, they don't just kind of bring up, it would be good if you were good to your friends, and bad if you were bad to your friends. Remember that, kids! Like, they have an actual debate. And then, obviously, the like, tour through the vault. That has... We have not talked yet about the music in this franchise and how consistently good Peter McConnell for most of the franchise, but also Ashif Hakik.
Yes.
Ashif Hakik from Sly 1, and then Peter McConnell for the rest. The music for the vault, Gauntlet of the Ancestors,
is
genuinely kind of moving stuff.
Very moving stuff.
And this is my pick for worst episode. But not really. Like, there's stuff I like about every episode.
I mean, obviously, it's not like we have a single episode which we hate. And it's gonna be more interesting when we get into, like, the details and the specifics through the episodes themselves. But yeah, I'm kind of scared to ask my next question if you had a hard time with this one, but it's your turn first.
My thing is, and we've touched on this a little bit back earlier at our introduction, is there anything Sly Cooper related you wish had gotten made, but it didn't?
that is confirmed to have been in production, or just out of my ass?
No, just in general. Like any kind of... Like, obviously, we do know of at least one major cancelled project. Actually, two. Some concept art came out for, like, a different version of a fourth game. I don't know if you ever saw that.
That's actually what I was going to... My answer going to be. It's the picture of Carmelita wearing the cowboy outfit, right?
Yeah, there's that. And there's, like, a threatening figure that kind of looks like Sly, but maybe it's not Sly. And those were the two concepts.
And I think it's the picture of a ninja with a huge cane. I think it's Carmelita dressed as a cowboy, but there's also Carmelita in some kind of ancient Greek attire.
Right.
So that was actually going to be my answer. So if I had to choose from the things that have been genuinely confirmed to have been in production and never came out, I would have to go with that game, because all jokes aside, Thieves in Time is shit. So I would much rather I'd much rather have that game instead of Thieves in Time. Now, that being said, I think that was being made for the PSP.
Yeah, that's the downside. That's the deal you gotta make with the devil there.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, yeah, that would be a downside, but I don't know if it'd be as big a downside as the ones from Thieves in Time.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, if I had to choose something that has never been confirmed to be in production, but I would like to see, obviously I could say, oh my god, Sucker Punch, I would love them to make another game. But that would be a cop-out. So what I would like would be the comics to continue.
That's actually my answer.
Shocker.
Yeah. I ranted earlier, I'm fine with there being a limited amount of Sly Cooper in the world. And
yeah.
I was so hyped for a fourth Sly Cooper game that had time travel in it, and I learned my lesson. But because as well, like, there's other series that have done it very nicely. Like, Gargoyles is very similar to Sly Cooper in that it is an insane nighttime world where literally everything is real and gets in cool fights in cities. And famously, it's had, like, a troubled production history because it was at the behest of Disney. But
I think it's coming back.
Yeah, allegedly. Like, there's always rumors that they're going to make more Gargoyles. But in the meantime, the creator has had a successful comics run where he's just, like, picking up with the characters and, like, filling in backstory. And likewise, you could definitely do that with Sly Cooper. You could also just have, like, done-in-one stories of the gang doing low-stakes heists that don't really tie into anything. Like, those are both valid approaches.
What I would love the comics to cover, obviously, there's so much stuff that I would love to see, like the one and done stuff, like what is it, Farewell My Sweet?
Yeah.
Like, stuff like that would be great, or like even giving context to, like, how did Carmelita meet Neela?
That kind of backstory.
Insert comic book.
Stuff that isn't necessary for you to understand the plot of the games, but would be interesting to explore. Absolutely.
Personally, my biggest gripe with Sly 2, or at least the biggest gripe I've had during this recent playthrough after Christmas, was how we get points in the story which, like, I would love to see explored. How Sly and the gang helps Carmelita escape during the end of some of the levels, and it's like
only covered in one line. Yeah.
Yes, and we don't know what they discussed or how Carmelita handled it. And I think since we got one of the comics exploring Monaco, which obviously never happened, and we're gonna get into that during the Sly 2 episode, I feel like they could provide more context in between for the space between the episodes of Sly 2.
Yeah. Like, even...
But yeah.
That's already the case, that if you just buy Sly 3 and you put it into your PlayStation 2, Sly is like, I met this guy named McSweeney and he started me on the Vault Quest. There's a comic of that. There's a comic of him meeting McSweeney and you see what they actually talked about. Like, that exact level of, like... Because you don't need to see that conversation to understand Sly 3. But it's really nice to see that conversation.
It is really nice, and it references, like... It has the previous villains in their cells. Yeah. That is such a cool, like, strip. But anyway, yeah. I'm glad we agree.
Comics all the way.
So, pull out the Wikipedia.
Okay.
Because my next question, and I know you'll know one of them, but it is your top 3 missions.
Okay.
I know one of them. I actually might... I think I know 2 of yours, and I would like to guess.
All right. Yeah, hit me.
I've asked this recently on Tumblr, and you said laptop retrieval.
Laptop retrieval, absolutely, yes. Laptop retrieval is like a level in of itself. It's like, like a beginning, middle, and end. It's
like an operation.
Yeah. And it just hits you halfway through. That's really good, like, keeping you on your toes. And, like, it starts with the fucking team meeting getting interrupted. That is a brilliant stroke. To shake things up. Cool Bentley hacking. I do like the hacking minigame, and I think that yin-yang thing in the shape of Sao's shield.
Sao's avatar.
That is the best enemy in any of the hacking minigames, easily.
What did you call it? Spark Racer?
No.
Spark Runner?
No. And then there's the Guru is there, and that's fine, I guess. And then you have a very memorable boss fight, where, again...
Even the Guru part is pretty good.
It's very, like, visually striking, yeah.
Yes.
And yet, they didn't have to make a new area or anything. They're just making very interesting use of the existing level. So that's great. And then
boss fight with 2 phases.
Yeah. With just very memorable dialogue where Sly calls Sao the worst person he's ever met. And he's not wrong.
Valid. Valid.
And what's your other guess?
My other guess would be Lemon Rage.
Lemon Rage! These are good guesses. You were on the money in both cases. I knew as soon as you asked that I had to pick something that demonstrates the gang working together. So, like, you were saying just there that you don't particularly like in Anatomy of Disaster the tag team missions. I actually really do. If not, like, they're not the most interesting missions to play, maybe. But I really like the concept that in order to get this done, the team really has to work in tandem. And anything...
No, I get that as well.
Any part of the series that really shows that. Like, again, in Starry Eye Encounter, there's the very first mission along those lines where Bentley has to hack, and you play as Sly getting him to the computer, and then you play as Sly and Murray as he's doing the hacking. And you're seeing all 3 of them working at the same place at the same time. So, Lemon Rage is a mission along those lines, and also, it's really funny. So,
yes, it is.
It's gotta be my pick. I'm willing to bet that voice actor was not even Australian, but the intonation of, and this just so happens to be a lemonade bar, is going to be playing in my head until the day that I die. Like, that's in there forever.
It's so random, but it works so well.
Yeah. It feels like they were told by someone, this is an E for everyone game. You are not allowed to depict alcohol. And they went with malicious compliance. Fine. we won't depict alcohol, but we're going to depict lemonade in the stupidest, most over-the-top way we can.
Yeah.
And that scans to an adult as, like, a joke in of itself.
Yeah. It's so good.
That is only 2.
Yeah, what is the third?
What is the third? Those were both from Sly 3, so is there anything from Sly 1 that jumps out to me? This is a bit of a weird one, but I really like the one in Menace from the North A, where Bentley has to hack the boats. I just like that one. I don't have an essay prepared.
That is a very... And I'm not the biggest fan of the hacking, but that is a very good mission. That is how I recently found out that Murray can kill Grizzleface.
Yeah, you posted that footage.
If you mess around with it. Murray, I don't know what got into him during that mission, but I don't know if it's some of the like spice that was left inside, but he is ruthless. He's a killing machine.
Oh my god.
Because he follows you around. He's dead set on protecting Bentley. That is a good mission, actually.
Okay.
I didn't know it was worthy of top 3, though.
I mean, if I go through... Because as well, like...
Yeah.
I could get into boss fights, but that feels like a separate thing.
Yeah, no, it is a separate thing.
There's moments that are like, sort of fall between 2 missions. I will just shout out supercharging the tram in Prague to turn it into a bullet to explode a prison wall. Also very good.
The first or second mission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent job.
Sly's breakout.
What are your 3 top favorites?
Well, I think you know what the number 1 is.
Would it perhaps be Battery of Peril?
It is. It is Battery of Peril.
It was
Battery of Peril.
Never in any doubt.
My beloved. It's so interesting that both our number 1 picks are from a cold alliance.
Yeah.
First of all. Second, you play as Carmelita, which is a sweet package as it is.
All the Carmelita missions are great.
Exactly. So not only do you get to play as Carmelita, you play as Sly getting chased by Carmelita, but it's open to the entire hub.
Yeah. I'm
sold. When Bentley is like, the battery is fully charged, you can return to the safe house now. Trust me, I'm not returning to the safe house. Like, I love how you can just glide from one end of the hub to the other, and she just catches up to you in a matter of seconds. Like, the adrenaline rush is like nothing else.
Even just the simple... Because, like, even from Sly 1, and these are my favorite missions in Sly 1, the ones where Carmelita shows up and you have to just run away from her, basically. Even just the idea that you play as Carmelita chasing down Sly is such a simple but effective idea of flipping that perspective.
All of those levels are... The layout is impeccable.
Yeah.
So, my number 2 is still a tuxedo.
Yeah.
Because not only is the palace doorman in it, but also I love like the stupidity of pulling off missions which are literally life-threatening, and then you have to do something as mundane as pick up a shirt.
Yeah. Genuinely... It could have gone either way, whether you were counting the second hotel part, or whether you literally meant the mission where you walk up to the doorman and the doorman's like, get out of here. And then that's the end. I wouldn't have been shocked if that was your pick for number 2. But no, the hotel part is good too. It's
the whole package. It's just stupidity at its finest. I love that.
Even the fact that, like, he does get the tuxedo, but he has to get one item from each room. No one has, like, shoes and a shirt.
And just brawling with the guards over fucking shoes is, like, 10 out of 10 for me. And then, for the third one, I kind of liked how I chose one from Sly 3 and one from Sly 2. So I kind of wanted to say Boneyard Casino from Sly 1.
Interesting.
Because it is genuinely my favorite level from Sly 1.
Yeah.
Like going through the casino.
That's a good pick.
It's just the atmosphere and the level design is like 10 out of 10 for me. But if I did have to be honest, it would be Guard Duty from Sly 3 with the getting buried in marinara sauce.
Yeah. Hard to top that. I have a question about Boneyard Casino. We'll get back to Guard Duty in just a sec. How come Casino is flooded? Is it just because Bookshot is dumb?
Who knows? And who has ever asked?
I might be the first.
I feel like he took over the casino because of its appeal, but then kind of failed to upkeep it.
Yeah, like he's very explicitly not good at running a tourist destination. So I kind of
no.
I get why it's flooded, but also why is it flooded?
It is never explained, and also why is there a huge Russian roulette at the end?
Yeah, that's not like that's really cool, but it's not how that game works.
No.
But
yeah, and how it's a cool episode, but for Guard Duty,
yes,
one of my favorite aspects of Sly 3, which is kind of underused, is the painting.
Yeah,
looking for the code in the painting. I love that. Like, genuinely, I love that so much. And they only do it just one more time.
Yeah.
In the Baron's hangar.
Yes.
But Sly disguising, having to find out what Tony the Killer Bee's nickname is.
Yeah. I like how I did notice, even as a child, each Sly level in 3 has at least one guard that is named. So there's Tony the Killer Bee, there's like First Mate Jones, even fucking
yes.
Dr. M named one of his mutants Richards. Like,
who has a
wife and
he have a family?
Child, confusingly. Not for long, but that going back to like the sense of this is a cartoon, but also it's a real place that people live. Having a guard who thinks he's hot shit because he has a nickname, like that really does flesh things out a bit.
Yeah, it's again that like stupidity of it all. So anyway, what is your next question? Is this your final question, or do you have two more?
I have two more. My penultimate question is very mushy. What's your happiest memory related to these games?
Oh, yeah, that is very mushy. But I would probably have to say just the times that my memory has held on to from either watching my dad play during my childhood or how I slowly, gradually started playing it myself. I remember the night that I played the Rajan boss fight for the first time and I was petrified.
Oh.
Yeah, all of these memories. Like even the thing I spoke about before with the printing of the Sly 2 screen grabs.
I figured that might be, because that's such a nice little anecdote. Even looking over my questions.
It is literally my childhood.
Yeah.
What about yours?
Again, I thought about it in good faith, and I can't really think of a specific memory. So I like the way that anytime, like say it's my birthday or something, I can just sit down, I can play one of these games, and I can have a good time with it. That is a good thing. And also, it's worth pointing out, it's good that you've already kind of broken the ice on this, I suppose. I owe a creative debt to Disney's Zootopia, which is a thing I need to say on the record. In that I wrote for a bit early in college, and I really struggled to like get it down consistently. I saw that movie. It really kind of supercharged me. I started knocking out a fanfic that was updating weekly, which is insane for me. Like, that really changed things. And there are no prizes for guessing what the plot of that fanfic was. Because I had this then recent movie about talking animals who fight and or commit crime in a relatively grounded setting. And the plot was very simple. Like, before I left...
Relatively grounded,
exactly. It is a fun contrast because there is no magic and there's no super science. Like, it is just some people are good at kicks in that universe.
Yeah.
But that's enough. That's close enough to ask the very important question, what if Sly Cooper was there? And before I knew it, I had a trilogy of novels basically written, and I have continued to write daily. I have a daily writing goal that I hit. And since then, again, like I said, I still like Zootopia fine, but I don't think about it every day the way that I might for a certain other video game series.
That's really impressive how you write every day, because, I mean, I'm not going to open this can of worms, but, like...
We could probably talk completely separately about writing. I'll just note that, like, in terms of writing every day, it's down to figuring out what works for you personally. So again, for many, many years, I didn't have a system that worked for me, and I did not write consistently, and I felt bad about that. Now I do have a system that works for me.
Right.
Anyway, what is is this your final question?
This is my final question, and it's also a mushy one.
Okay.
What is your favorite Thieves in Times episode?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's the one with Tennessee in it. It's literally... I remember when I was thinking of making, like, a very long retrospective on Sly Cooper that would, like, go through it literally episode by episode kind of thing. I remember, like, having a chart for the goodness, the quality of each game, and how it's pretty consistent for the first three. And Thieves in Time has this, like, horrifying peak where it starts, it shoots up on level 2, which is the one with Tennessee, and then it shoots right back down until it's in hell where it belongs. It's because Tennessee, he's humorously written and voiced by Mr. Sam Riegel. He's got the only good, unique ancestor power, which is for some reason Call of Duty kill streak.
Basically.
A third thing.
Yes. And?
I like how he and Carmelita team up. That's cool. And then they never do anything like that again, plot-wise.
I mean, that comes through a hostage situation.
Yeah, it comes from Carmelita being tied up because she's the girl. And then he saves her, and then they have to save the gang. And then Carmelita just kind of fades into the background from that point onwards.
Listen, I wanted to ask this question to inflict any sort of suffering. And you were too quick to answer. So I want to retract my question.
Is the podcast over? Am I fired?
No, but I will ask, what is your worst Thieves in Time episode, since you were so quick to answer this one?
I mean, like I said, the start's fine. The first episode of the Ryuichi's fine. The one with Tennessee is at points good. I think, and then from there's like at least one, what a British media critic would call clanger. There's at least one clanger of a decision in each level after that.
What is clanger?
Clanger is when something is so bad you can feel like it's like an onomatopoeia in terms of like you can feel the whole movie go like clang, and your body like vibrates. Okay. It's like a fucking car hit you. I don't have a formal definition, but in my lifetime of reading British newspapers, that is how I would define clanger. The caveman episode, clanger.
Basically.
Sly had a secret caveman ancestor who's twice as old as the first actual recorded Thieves Raccoonus ancestor. Medieval England episode. Penelope's here and she's evil. Clanger. Arabia episode. Miss Decibel is fat and she's in love with the Paradox and he doesn't love her back because she's fat. Clanger. Finale. The whole part of it. So...
You can't see me right now, but I am both laughing and experiencing several types of pain.
We were like, we're gonna start nice. We're gonna be upbeat in the first episode. We're gonna focus on the things that we like.
No.
And
no.
It didn't last.
Clanger.
Yeah, the whole thing's a clanger. I didn't even get into... I said, Miss Decibel's a bad villain. So is the Grizz, who is Dimitri, if Dimitri was more of a racial stereotype. Yeah, wow.
No, I regret asking anything in relation to Thieves in Time in the first place.
I regret that our listeners can't see the absolutely anguished face you're making. You're like an Ace Attorney character going through a breakdown. It's like... I can't give words to it. I'm sorry. You just have to take my word for it that I've rarely seen a person in more pain.
Listen, I'm a very emotive person, okay? And I am going through the entire spectrum of emotions right now.
I googled it real quick.
Yes.
Or rather, I duck-goed it. Clanger. Noun. A blunder, a faux pas, a conspicuous mistake whose effects seem to reverberate, a noticeable mistake, and attention-grabbing faux pas. So yeah, that second definition of like, it's a mistake so bad that you can feel it vibrating your body.
I am speechless.
Are you ready for my final question?
I am. Let's put Thieves in Time to bed.
For now.
I can't.
Put Thieves in Time for bed for now. My one is also mushy, and I mean it this time.
Okay.
Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to talking about on this podcast?
Aw, it is mushy. And since you labeled it as mushy, I will give you a mushy answer. And that is that obviously I have things that I am looking forward to speaking about, but and our listeners, I'm hoping they can attest to that. Like, I feel like even if we discuss Thieves in Time, which is horrible, and as we've just established, inflicts several type of pain and headache and fever and back pain.
Eventually death.
Yes. I'm looking forward most to having banter with you.
Aww.
On any of the topics. Or else we wouldn't be here.
That's true. That's a good answer.
That is my mushy answer.
I feel the same. I feel like we...
Aww.
I don't think it's revealing behind the curtain too much to say that we talked for like 40 minutes before we hit record.
Yes. And it's pretty telling how we wanted the episode to be around 40 minutes and we
missed that.
We literally hit.
Just slightly. Just, by a minute or 60.
Yeah.
On that note, it might be time to reach some sort of conclusion.
Wrap it up. Yeah.
I think we've hit all the questions.
Okay. Yes, we have. I mean, you haven't answered yours.
Oh, yeah. Your answer was good, so I'm going to parrot that. And also, just like, I care so much about this series that I am very excited for the chance to go through it, like, bit by bit, conceptually.
Yeah.
including maybe if we do the 14-part series on Thieves in Time, maybe that'll finally fix me, and I'll be able to move on with my life in a way that I thus far have not been able to do.
No.
Okay. Like, it's gotten better over time, but genuinely, that, more than any other piece of media, that game hurt my soul in that I will be, like, brushing my teeth, and my brain will go... And another thing that's really bad about the redesign for Carmelita is, like, just unprompted, everything leads back to that same place. But because...
Please don't say it.
Like, my brain keeps going to the trilogy. So then, if there's one thing conceptually useful, if not good, about Thieves in Time, it's that it does make you appreciate the trilogy more in terms of having counterexamples of, like, why does the Paradox not work as a villain? Why do the minor villains not stand out as well? Why does the design seem off? Like, that kind of thing. And there are answers to that question. But yeah.
I'm sure you haven't. But I felt almost petrified. I could feel my heart dropping to my stomach, because when you said you were brushing your teeth and your brain would go, I thought I knew what you were going to say, and that was shake your controller to make Carmelita dance. And
like I said, I had initial plans to make like a YouTube, either like in many parts or in one horrible 4-hour monster on that game. The thing is, I would have had to record footage or get it from elsewhere of that, and I really don't need to ever see that again.
No.
Yeah.
No one ever has to see that again, ever.
Yeah.
Anyway, that will undoubtedly come out during the Thieves in Time episode. But until then, if you are still listening...
If you made it this far...
Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking around and tolerating us. And this was just like a preview of what's to come. It's not always going to be as cut and dry as we have 5 questions and we are going to answer them immediately. And obviously that's why we started a podcast, because we feel like we have a lot to say, and that might be like jumping from tangent to tangent.
I feel like we've conclusively proven that we have a lot to say.
Yeah, we do. Whether it's about belly dancing or anything else.
This was us going, but let's not get into that right now. We'll get into that later.
And then getting into it.
Yeah, getting into it at least a little bit.
But yeah, so if you liked what we had to say and think that you would like our discussions on the game specifically, feel free to subscribe and leave a like. And as Snap already said, you can let us know if you want us to cover any topic or have an episode based on something. You can either comment that below or send us an ask on our Tumblr accounts, which will be linked in the description.
Yes.
And do you have anything else you would like to say before we sign off?
No. Doesn't bode well for my podcasting chops, but no, I do not have a pithy final comment.
That's fine, because this was just like the first taste.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for sticking around if you made it this far. And I guess we'll see you soon. He nodded.
I'm sorry.